Right? So LeBron James' 2019 season coming to an end, and it's been an eventful year for one Jimmy Butler. During the beginning of training camp on September 20th, Butler requested a trade from the Timberwolves. We remember that. Then on October 11th, he called out his teammates and management during a heated practice. And a month later, on November 12th, Butler was traded to the Sixers for Dario Saric and Robert Covington. On January 15th, Butler scored 19 points against his former team in the Sixers' 42-point win. And tonight, he's back in Minnesota. Brett Brown says Butler likes to feed off of that negativity.
I mean, he thrives under sort of blankets of controversy and you know, on-the-road games and heat of battle type moments. I greatly respect it. And you know, I think that when you look at sort of the high-level competitors, it's part of their DNA, and it certainly is part of his DNA. And, you know, those who have sort of really paid attention to how we're using him, I'm using him, as we go through the flow of a game, and I certainly call his number, but I especially call his number with about 6 minutes left in tight games.
Well, it should also be noted, no Joel Embiid. He's out the next 3 games. More on that later in the show. But what that could mean is more of a show from Jimmy Butler. Karan, you spoke to him early tonight.
Yeah, and before I even get back to, you know, what we're going to say with Jimmy Butler and, you know, his soundbite of what he said, you know, to me, you know, via text, you look at possibly who the guy who he was traded for, or for him to have more room for growth in Andrew Wiggins. His production hasn't really changed. You know, prior to Jimmy Butler being traded, he was averaging 17.9. You know what I mean? So he's still in the 17s. His efficiency has actually dropped a little bit. So getting back to Jimmy, I think this is going to be a game that he try to go out there and dominate on both ends of the floor, and particularly when that matchup with him and Wiggins, he's going to try to put on a demonstration.
Well, Booz, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this, all right? Because we mentioned the stuff before the season. I mean, Butler called out Karl Anthony Towns, and they had an exchange and said, no, I'm coming for you. This happened. So to see these guys both on the court tonight, are you expecting fireworks, considering Towns himself has been playing exceptionally well?
Yeah, you got to remember Jimmy's makeup. You know, drafted by us in Chicago. He was my rookie with the Bulls. Had to work his way up. You know, he wasn't given a starting spot right away. He was playing behind D. Rose, Luol Deng, 2 all-star players. Obviously, D. Rose was an MVP player. And he had to work his way into getting his minutes. Then he goes to Minnesota, where he's established himself as a star, and he's seeing 2 extremely talented guys. Wiggins was the #1 pick in the draft, Karl Anthony Towns as well, 2 stud players, and he doesn't see them working as hard as he had to work to get the same kind of respect from the peers and obviously the NBA. So he challenged them. You know, you guys can be all NBA, you guys can be all stars, but as Karan just said, Wiggins' production has been about the same, maybe even a little bit less. Now, Cat has been balling. You guys, you look at his stats even as a rookie, his first 5-6 years in the NBA, he's been amazing. His stats are incredible. So obviously he's picked this game up a lot, but Jimmy's one of those guys that wants to get the most out of his team, because he knew when he was there, if they were going to have real success, those 2 guys had to play at a major level.
And to your point, I love what Cat is doing, but I feel like it's incentive-based. You know, I don't feel like
you're saying it's based on the money, yeah, as opposed to winning.
And I would too. Like, I would play hard because that's a heck of a kicker, but at the same time, it's just like that sense of urgency from you as the guy, that should be there from beginning to end of the season. You're the face of the Timberwolves franchise, and it's a lot on your shoulders, granted, but it's, you know, to your credit, you're capable of carrying this ball club in the fashion that you're doing right now. I mean, look at that, 45% from 3, over 50+
30
from field
and 15
goal.
Is essentially rounded
Come on,
up the
man.
numbers.
He's a walking problem. And in some polls, just last season, he was, you know, with general managers, they were saying, like, if you started a franchise, this is the guy you start with over a lot of people.
If we see those numbers unlock, Booz, and that this is his potential,
Right.
Why wasn't he doing that before? Does it justify almost what Jimmy Butler was saying about him? Because if if he has that ability to do this, then why wasn't he doing that before?
Well, you see what Jimmy did when he was there. They went to the postseason. The first year he was there. And he only plays, 9, 10 games this season with them before he gets traded. and the Minnesota Timberwolves aren't in the playoff picture. So clearly, Jimmy knew. You got to give Jimmy some credit. He sees the potential in Cat. You see what he's doing now. Whether even if it is incentive-based, his numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If he can play like this, even if it is incentive-based, like Karan said, play like this all the time, then you can be one of the best players at your position that ever played. But if it takes money to motivate you, then we have a problem.
Well, when you look at the Eastern Conference standings, getting back to the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid going to miss the next 3 games, do you see where they're nestled? They have a 3.5-game lead over the Celtics and the Pacers, who are trailing them, and they're kind of behind the Raptors. So for Embiid to get the load management rest, do you like that approach by the 76ers to sit him out of this one and sit him out through Thursday at least?
Yeah, I do. I mean, for him, he's a guy that's had some injury seasons, plague seasons in the past. I need him healthy in the regular season because this guy is a problem. You know, he's a difference maker. With Embiid healthy, with the rest of those guys, especially Ben Simmons, obviously Jimmy, and Tobias Harris coming over, and the rest of J.J. Redick, Dookie! But with the rest of that squad, if Embiid is healthy, they got a chance to come out the Eastern Conference. So if he needs a little bit of rest here or there as they come down the stretch, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I also think that you look at that team, the honeymoon phase is over.
Right.
For the guys who you acquired via trade. So Tobias Harris comes over. He makes a splash initially getting there. Jimmy Butler kind of, even takes a further step back. And then now he's trying to assert himself more now going towards the playoffs. You saw the huge game winner that he hit versus the Celtics. And you see Tobias, trying to find his niche again on this basketball team. So now Joel Embiid, he preserves himself. He steps away. He's going to get well rested. And then Brett Brown has the opportunity to feature Tobias Harris a little bit more. Make sure that he's clicking on all cylinders going into the playoffs.
Great point.
Clicking on all cylinders going into the playoffs. All those teams out west seem to be doing that, but none clicking as well as the bearded one. 31 in the first half for James Harden, looking like another one of those games. Rockets ahead by 3 over the Kings at the break. Then Montrezl Harrell leading the way for the Clippers against the Cavs.